Please comment where you are watching in the world. Thank you. I'd been out of a long-term relationship for about a year, and I was cautiously trying to date again. Not looking for anything serious, but open to it if the right person came along. I was mostly matching with people close to my age, late 20s, early 30s, because I didn't feel like dealing with the different expectations that often come with big age gaps. That's when I matched with Jess. Her profile said she was 26. She had a short bio: books, coffee, sapphic chaos. Her photos were casual, one at a bookstore, one with a cat curled up on her lap, one mirror selfie wearing a band tee I actually recognized, which is rare. She messaged first, "You look like the type of person who alphabetizes their spice rack." I laughed. She wasn't wrong. Our conversation was easy from the start. She was clever, sarcastic, and just a little weird in a way that felt familiar. We talked about our favorite childhood books, bad tattoos, and how neither of us understood the appeal of brunch, but somehow kept ending up at it anyway. We texted for a week before meeting in person. She lived about 30 minutes away, in a smaller town just outside of the city. Said she worked part-time at a library and was finishing up a degree in graphic design. We met at a cafe halfway between us. She was a little shorter than I expected, with dyed blue hair, chipped nail polish, and a nervous energy that was oddly charming. She didn't make a lot of eye contact, but when she did, it felt intense. We sat outside and talked for 2 hours. She told me about a zine she was working on, and I told her about the worst job I ever had, which involved dressing as a mascot for a local car dealership. She laughed so hard she snorted, then apologized for it. That night, she messaged me, "I like you." I don't usually say that this fast, but I do. I smiled at the screen for longer than I should admit. We saw each other again the next week. Then again the week after that. Things stayed casual, but there was a growing closeness. We were texting constantly, sharing playlists, talking about things that felt heavier, past relationships, family stuff, fears we didn't usually say out loud. One night, we were lying on my couch watching a terrible horror movie, and she suddenly asked, "Would it be weird if I said I wanted to keep seeing you, like seriously?" I turned to her. "No, that wouldn't be weird." She smiled. "Good. I was worried you might think I'm too young or something." That made me pause. "You're 26, I said. "That's not too young." She went quiet for a second. Then she said, "Okay, so there's something I have to tell you." I felt my stomach tighten. "I'm not 26, she said. "I'm 20. I stared at her. She rushed on. "I know that's a lot, and I know I should have told you sooner. But I liked you, and I didn't think you'd even talk to me if I put my real age. I don't usually lie about this, but you seemed safe. You didn't message me anything creepy. You seemed kind." I didn't know what to say, because 20 isn't illegal. It's not like she was 16 or something, but it felt off, like I'd been tricked into something I didn't agree to. I asked her why she lied. She said, "People don't take me seriously when they know my real age. I hate how fast people dismiss you when you're young. Like you can't be smart or mature or interesting unless you've hit 25. I understood that. On some level I really did. But still. "You lied to me," I said. "That matters." She looked down. "I know. I'm sorry." We sat in silence for a long time after that. Eventually she left. I didn't say whether I'd see her again. The next day, I got a long message from her, apologizing again, saying she understood if I didn't want to talk anymore, but also saying she didn't regret matching with me, that she felt something real, even if it started from something fake. I didn't reply. I needed space, time to think, to figure out how I felt. A few days passed. Then I started getting messages from new Tinder profiles. Different names, different photos, but the same writing style, the same jokes. One profile said, "Some people ghost because they're cowards." Another, "Still thinking about those playlists." Then another that just said, "You never gave me a chance." I unmatched all of them. I blocked the numbers when they started texting me. But they kept showing up. Each time slightly different, slightly more invasive. One night, I got a message from a new number that just said, "I saw you at the bookstore yesterday. Why didn't you say hi?" I had been at the bookstore. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. I checked the windows, locked the door again, made sure the curtains were closed. The next day, I got a friend request on Instagram from an account named Your Second Chance. No profile picture, no posts. The bio said, "You made a mistake." I didn't respond. I just blocked again. But the thing is, once that line gets crossed, you start questioning everything. Every notification. Every anonymous like. Every glance over your shoulder in public. I stopped using Tinder. Deleted my account entirely. I started posting less. I kept my location off. I changed my phone number. It didn't stop right away. The last message I got was a voice memo from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I just deleted it, blocked the sender, turned off my phone, and sat there in the dark for a long time. It's been over a year now. I haven't seen her since. Haven't heard anything. I don't know if she finally moved on or just found someone else to fixate on. I didn't expect to be dating again at 42. After my divorce, I told myself I'd take a year to just focus on me and my daughter, Kayla. She was 14 at the time, old enough to understand that her parents were better off apart, but still young enough that I worried about how everything would affect her. The first year post-divorce was about survival. Paying bills, rebuilding our routines, learning how to be alone without feeling lonely. Then slowly I started thinking about companionship again. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just missed conversation. Missed being seen. Kayla was the one who finally nudged me. "Mom," she said one night over spaghetti, "you should go on a date." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a weird thing to hear from your teenager." She shrugged. "You're allowed to be happy." So I downloaded a dating app. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a few awkward coffee dates, a couple of ghostings, and best case, someone who didn't make me want to fake an emergency halfway through dinner. That's when I matched with Greg. He was 45, worked in environmental consulting, and lived about 20 minutes away. His profile had pictures of him hiking, smiling with a golden retriever, and grilling something on a patio. He wrote that he was family-oriented, emotionally available, and ready for the next chapter. It felt safe. That was my first impression. He didn't have that overly polished, too smooth vibe that some men on the app had. He seemed normal, grounded. We messaged for a few days before talking on the phone. He had a deep, reassuring voice. Asked thoughtful questions. Told me he'd been divorced for a few years, no kids. Said he liked that I was honest about having a teenage daughter. "I admire single moms," he said. "It's the hardest job in the world." Our first date was coffee on a Sunday afternoon. He was warm and easy to talk to. No red flags. No weird comments. Just good conversation and a shared slice of lemon cake. We saw each other again the following weekend. Then again 2 days after that. He didn't rush anything. Didn't push for more than I was comfortable giving. He texted good morning. Asked how my meetings went. Sent me a photo of his dog, Ranger, curled up under a blanket. After about a month, I mentioned that my church was holding its annual spring potluck. I wasn't inviting him, not directly. I was just talking about it in passing. But he lit up. "That sounds lovely," he said. "I haven't been to a church dinner in years." I hesitated. "It's mostly families. Not really a dating scene." He smiled. "I'm not going to cruise for dates. I just think it'd be nice to meet the people important to you. Unless you'd rather I didn't come." I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude. And honestly, it didn't seem like a big deal. It was a public event. Plenty of people would be around. So I said sure. He offered to bring a dish, homemade meatballs, he said, from his grandmother's recipe. The night of the potluck, he showed up early. Wore a blue button-down and khakis. Brought a tray of meatballs, a container of extra sauce, and a bouquet of tulips for me. Everyone loved him. He was charming without being showy. Asked people about their kids. Complimented the food. Even helped fold chairs when the event was winding down. At one point, I saw him talking to Kayla and 2 of her friends. They were sitting on the edge of the stage in the fellowship hall, laughing at something he'd said. It made me smile. He didn't seem like the type to treat teenage girls as invisible, which I appreciated. Later, as we were packing up, Kayla was quieter than usual. "You okay?" I asked on the drive home. She nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't bring him up. I didn't push. But something in her tone felt off. I figured maybe she was still adjusting. It was only the second time she'd been around him. 2 nights later, I found her sitting on her bed, scrolling through something on her phone, her face tight. "Hey," I said. "Want to talk?" She hesitated. Then she said, "Greg's weird." My stomach dropped. I sat on the edge of her bed. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, then down at her hands. During the potluck, he asked me if I had a boyfriend. And when I said no, he said, "Good. You're too pretty for boys your age. They wouldn't know what to do with you." I stared at her. Then she added, "He also asked if I had Instagram." I said no. He said that was a shame. that he'd love to see the kinds of pictures I post. I felt my chest tighten. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I asked gently. She shrugged. "I don't know. I thought maybe I imagined it. But I kept thinking about it, and it just felt gross." I hugged her, told her she did the right thing by telling me, that she didn't imagine it, that her instincts were good. After she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall. I didn't want to believe it, but I did, because I remembered the way he'd looked at her, just a beat too long. The way he'd asked about her school, her interests, her schedule, all under the guise of polite adult conversation. I texted him the next morning. "We need to talk." He didn't reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. By lunchtime, his number was disconnected. His dating profile was gone. His LinkedIn, Facebook, even the photos he'd sent me, all disappeared. I called the number listed on the environmental consulting firm he claimed to work for. They'd never heard of him. I drove by the address he gave me the first time we met. It was a house, but it was vacant. For sale. A real estate sign in the yard. The man I'd been seeing didn't exist. Or at least, not in the way I thought. I filed a report. Told the church leadership. Told the other parents whose kids had spoken to him. Everyone was horrified. A few people asked if I'd checked him out before bringing him around. I didn't have the energy to defend myself. Because the truth is, I had. I'd Googled him. Searched his number. Looked up the company. Nothing screamed fake. And yet, I don't know what his real name was. Or what he wanted. Or why he vanished so quickly. But I know this. He was interested in my daughter. Not in me. And he used me to get close to her. It's been almost a year since that night. Kayla's doing okay. We've talked about it more than once. She says it feels like a bad dream now, blurry around the edges. But she still doesn't like it when I mention dating. Says she wants me to wait a little longer. I met Eli on Hinge. He was 36, a software developer who, according to his profile, loved road trips, cooking, and deep conversations over strong coffee. He had a quiet smile in his photos, like he was always holding back laughter, and a beard that was just a little uneven. He looked normal. Not polished, not trying too hard. That was refreshing. We started chatting on a Tuesday afternoon. By Saturday, we were texting nonstop. He was good at keeping the conversation going without being too much. Asked about my favorite books, and then actually read one of them. Called me quick-witted when I made a dumb joke about my cat knocking over my houseplants. Our first date was at a brewery downtown. He was a little taller than I expected, smelled like cedar and clean laundry, and had a way of listening that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We shared 2 flights and a plate of pretzel bites. When I told him I was trying to rebuild trust after a toxic relationship, he didn't flinch. Just nodded and said, "You don't owe anyone your softness until they earn it." We ended the night with a hug. He didn't try to push anything. Texted me when he got home. Tonight was easy in the best way. We saw each other again the next week. Then again the week after that. Always at public places, coffee shops, bookstores, a couple of casual dinners. No pressure, no red flags. He never came on too strong. I appreciated that. After about a month of dating, he invited me over for dinner. "I make a mean chicken cacciatore," he said. "And I promise I won't overcook the pasta." I hesitated. I hadn't been to his place yet. But we'd spent hours together. He'd never made me uncomfortable. And I liked him. Liked how calm I felt around him. So I said yes. He lived in a quiet neighborhood about 25 minutes from mine. Lots of trees, houses with wide driveways and wind chimes. His place was a small ranch-style house with a porch swing and mismatched flower pots. He greeted me at the door with a dish towel slung over his shoulder and a little bit of flour on his shirt. "You're early," he said, grinning. "I haven't finished burning dinner yet." I laughed. Followed him inside. The house smelled like garlic and red wine. The kitchen was clean but lived in, wooden cutting board, spice jars lined up on a shelf, a fridge covered in postcards and grocery lists. He poured me a glass of red and told me to make myself at home. While he finished cooking, I wandered toward the living room. There were books stacked on the coffee table, a cat curled up on the couch, her name was Olive, and a record player in the corner. Everything felt normal, comfortable. When dinner was ready, we sat at the small table by the window. The chicken was perfect, the pasta slightly overcooked, and we both laughed when I pointed it out. We talked for 2 hours, maybe more. He asked questions about my family, my childhood, my writing. Told me about growing up in Vermont, and how he once got stuck in a snowstorm for 5 hours with only a granola bar and a dying phone. At one point, I asked where his bathroom was. Down the hall, second door on the left, he said. Don't open the door at the end. That's my basement. It sticks and is a pain to close again. I nodded and went to the bathroom. When I came out, I paused. The basement door wasn't completely shut. It was slightly ajar, enough to show the top of a wooden staircase. I don't know why I looked. Curiosity, I guess. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced. There was a light on down there. I could see the concrete floor, part of a metal shelving unit, and something white near the bottom step. I leaned slightly to get a better view. It was a folding table. On it, a laptop, a pair of gloves, and what looked like a wig. I froze. Not because of what I saw, exactly. It wasn't that any one item was horrifying. But something about the combination, the secrecy, the fact that he'd told me not to look, it all made my skin crawl. I stepped back and quietly pulled the door closed. When I returned to the kitchen, Eli was rinsing dishes. Thanks for dinner, I said, keeping my voice steady. He smiled. You okay? Yeah, just tired. I think I'm gonna head out. He offered to walk me to the car, but I declined. Don't worry, I said. I park like a professional escape artist. He laughed, and I forced a smile. But inside, I was buzzing. I didn't sleep well that night. Kept replaying the image of that basement. The table. The gloves. The wig. I told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe the gloves were for gardening. Maybe the wig was for a Halloween costume. Maybe the laptop was where he did freelance work. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The next day I Googled him. His name, the one he gave me, brought up a LinkedIn profile. Sparse, but it matched what he'd told me, software developer, Vermont native. I searched deeper. Found an old college newspaper article from 2007. He was listed as part of a campus coding competition. Same name, same major. But the photo wasn't him. Different guy entirely. I went back to his Facebook. His profile was private, barely used. A few pictures, none recent. Not many friends. Something felt off. I reverse image searched one of his profile pictures. It showed up on a stock photo site. Under the tag, friendly man in casual clothes. I sat there, stomach sinking. Heart racing. The man I'd been dating wasn't Eli. Or at least, not the Eli he pretended to be. I called the number he'd been using. It rang once, then went to voicemail. His voice was still there, calm, familiar. I didn't leave a message. I reported the profile on Hinge. Blocked the number. Sent the information I had, screenshots, messages, the stock photo link, to a friend who worked in cybersecurity. She called me that night. I don't want to freak you out, she said, but this guy's digital footprint is razor thin. Like, intentionally built to look real but vanish when you push. I filed a police report. Told them everything. They took it seriously, to their credit. Asked for all the messages, his address, the night I visited. They went to the house. It was empty. Furniture gone. Appliances too. The landlord said the tenant had moved out that morning. Paid cash for the last month. Left no forwarding address. The man I'd known as Eli had disappeared. I haven't heard from him since. I met Marin in the middle of a heat wave. It was June, and the city felt like it was melting. I'd been off dating apps for a while, but boredom and insomnia are a dangerous combination. I opened Hinge at 2 a.m., swiped a few times with no real intention, and matched with her almost instantly. Her first message was, "Let's skip the small talk. Tell me something that would make me delete you immediately." It caught me off guard. I stared at my screen, then typed back, "I once pretended to like jazz for an entire relationship." She replied, "Understandable. Jazz is a scam." We messaged for hours that night. She had this biting humor, the kind that made you feel like you were being examined and entertained at the same time. Her photos were mostly candids, laughing with friends, sitting on a curb eating ice cream, one mirror selfie in a bathroom with horrible lighting. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, but she had presence. You could feel it even through a screen. We met in person 3 days later. A bar with terrible air conditioning and cheap beer, the kind of place where the music was loud enough to fill silences, but not so loud you had to shout. She showed up in a black tank top and jeans, hair tied up in a messy knot, a single silver ring on her middle finger. "I don't do dating," she said within the first 5 minutes. "This is an experiment." I asked, "On what?" "On whether intimacy is possible without performance." I laughed. She didn't. We kept seeing each other. Not regularly, not predictably. She'd text at odd hours. "Come over. I made soup. Want to walk with me until my feet hurt?" Are you ever afraid you're the villain in someone's story? Sometimes we'd talk for hours. Other times, she'd fall asleep mid-movie, curled into a question mark on the couch. She told me about growing up in a house where no one ever said sorry. About moving to the city alone at 19. About the time she shaved her head because someone told her she was prettier with long hair. I liked her. A lot. But I never knew where I stood. Then came the night she asked for a toothbrush. It was a Sunday. She'd come over after a rough day, some fight with her landlord, something about mold and broken promises. We drank wine on my balcony and shared a frozen pizza. She seemed tired, not in a sleepy way, but like her bones were worn down. At one point, she stood up and said, "I don't want to go home." "Then don't," I said without thinking. She looked at me, then nodded. "Do you have a spare toothbrush?" It was such a simple question. But I froze. Because it felt like a shift. Like something had moved from casual to something else. I said, "I think I do." "Hold on." I found one in the cabinet, still in the wrapper, from a dentist's visit months ago. I handed it to her, and she smiled, but not all the way. "Thanks," she said. "That's sweet of you." She brushed her teeth, washed her face, and climbed into bed beside me like she'd always belonged there. We didn't have sex that night. She just curled into my side and whispered, "I don't sleep well. Don't be offended if I leave before sunrise." But she stayed. When I woke up, she was staring at the ceiling with a blank expression. "You ever feel like your body's just a costume?" she asked. Before I could answer, she sat up and said she had to go. She didn't message me for a week. I didn't want to push. I figured she needed space. Then late one night, I got a text. "You made me feel too safe." "That's dangerous." I replied. "I don't know what that means." She didn't answer. Another week passed. Then I saw her. Not in person, on someone else's Instagram story. A blurry shot from a party, her in the background, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. She looked happy. Or at least functional. I didn't reach out. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my place. It was a Wednesday. I was in sweatpants, eating cereal for dinner, and she knocked on my door like nothing had happened. I opened it, startled. "Hey," she said. "I was in the neighborhood." I let her in. She wandered around like she was trying to remember something. Then she asked, "Did you throw out my toothbrush?" I blinked. "I didn't know you were coming back." She nodded slowly, then walked into the bathroom. When she came out, she held the toothbrush. "I left this here," she said. "That means something." I didn't know what to say. She sat on the couch, toothbrush still in hand, and asked, "Do you feel close to me?" I said, "Sometimes." She looked disappointed. Then she said, "I think I've been using you to see if I'm capable of being known." I didn't know whether to feel flattered or used. She stayed that night, and the night after. Then she vanished again. No message. No warning. This time, I didn't reach out. 2 weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a small tin box. Inside the box, the toothbrush. Wrapped in a napkin from the pizza place we'd gone to on our first night. And a note, handwritten in loopy cursive. "This means something. But I don't know what. Thank you for being a mirror. I'm sorry if that's all I was." That was the last I heard from her. I don't know what she wanted from me in the end. Maybe nothing. Maybe just somewhere to test the edges of herself. I still have the tin box. I don't know why I kept it. This happened about 3 years ago when I was living alone in a small apartment near the university where I worked. I was 31, single, and juggling a full-time job as a research assistant with night classes for my master's. My days were predictable by necessity. Coffee at 7, campus by 8:30, classes until 3, work until 6, then home, leftovers, and sleep. I didn't have time to date, really. I told myself I wasn't looking. But occasionally, when the silence of my apartment felt too loud, I'd scroll through dating apps. Not even to meet anyone, just to remind myself that I still existed in the world outside of work and school. One night, I matched with a man named Daniel. He was 34, worked in tech support, and had a photo of himself holding a black cat with a caption that said, "She chose me." His bio was simple: coffee snob, night owl listener. We started chatting that night. He asked thoughtful questions, nothing intrusive. He was funny in a dry way. Sent me a voice memo of him reading a poem after I mentioned I liked spoken word. I found myself smiling at my phone more than I had in months. We moved to texting after a few days. No love bombing, no pressure to meet immediately. He said he respected my busy schedule and didn't want to be another obligation. I liked that. After about 2 weeks, I agreed to a quick coffee date. We met at a cafe 2 blocks from campus. He was taller than I expected, with wire-rimmed glasses and a quiet demeanor. He wore a gray sweater and jeans and didn't try to hug me when we met, which I appreciated. The date was fine. Not electrifying, but warm. We talked about books and how we both hated small talk. He told me his job was mostly remote, fixing systems for clients who never said thank you. I told him about my thesis and how I was convinced it would never be finished. We talked for an hour. Then I said I had to go. He nodded. No guilt tripping. Just, I hope I see you again. I texted him the next day to say thank you. He replied, it was good to sit with someone who doesn't need to fill silence. After that, we fell into a rhythm. We didn't meet again right away, but we texted nearly every day. He seemed to remember things I'd said in passing. My favorite tea, how I liked rainy mornings, the name of my professor who always ran late. At first, I found it sweet. Then it started to feel a little too accurate. One day, I got a message from him just after my class ended. Bet you're walking past the library right now. I paused mid-step. I was walking past the library. I replied, lucky guess. He sent a smiley face. I brushed it off. A few days later, he sent, you always get Thai on Thursdays, don't you? I did. There was a food truck near campus that knew my order by heart, but I'd never told him that. I asked, how'd you know that? He said, you mentioned liking Thai food. I figured Thursday was your long day, so it made sense. It was a decent guess, but something about it stuck with me. Then came the phone call. It was a Thursday night. I was walking home from the library, earbuds in, listening to a podcast. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hey, said a voice. You really do walk fast. I stopped walking. Daniel. He laughed softly. I just saw you pass the corner store. Thought I'd say hi. I turned around. There was no one behind me. I didn't say anything. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. Just surprised. We hung up soon after. I told him I was tired and needed to get home. My heart was racing the entire walk back. That night, I didn't sleep well. I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe he lived near campus. Maybe it was a coincidence. But something felt wrong. The next day, I asked him casually where he lived. He replied, just outside the city. Why? I said, oh, I thought I saw you near campus the other night. He replied within seconds. Nope. Must have been my doppelganger. I didn't reply. I stopped texting him for a few days. He noticed. Sent a few messages. Nothing pushy. Just, hey, everything okay? Miss talking to you. Hope you're alright. Then finally, if you're not interested anymore, just say so. Don't ghost me like I don't matter. That one made my skin crawl. I blocked him. Deleted the app. Tried to move on. But about a week later, I found a note under my windshield wiper. It was typed. On plain white paper. No name. It said, I liked who you were before you got scared. I looked around the parking lot. No one. I filed a report with campus security. They were sympathetic, but said there wasn't much they could do unless he showed up again or threatened me directly. For a while, nothing happened. Then I started noticing little things. My doormat turned sideways. My mailbox left open. The smell of cigarette smoke outside my window, even though I lived on the second floor and didn't smoke. I bought new locks. A camera doorbell. Moved my car to a different spot every day. I changed my routine. Stopped going to the same coffee shop. Skipped the Thai truck. Took different paths home. The messages didn't come again. But I still felt watched. Still wonder if I was. It's been years now. I don't know who Daniel really was. I don't know if he worked in tech. If his name was even Daniel. If he followed me after our first date, or if he already knew my schedule before we met. I am 30 and my brother is 32. I'm just going to call him my boyfriend for the majority of the time while I type this. I feel weird about this. I was adopted as a baby, but I didn't know that I was adopted until I was in high school. It didn't feel betrayed or care much. I love my parents and my parents love me. Who cares if they aren't my real parents? My boyfriend was also adopted, and when we met it was one of the things we sort of bonded over. We both didn't learn we were adopted until high school, and we both were lucky and had good families. We weren't passed around from foster home to foster home. Our relationship was, and still is, great. We understood each other very fast. We were attracted to each other quickly. I've never met someone and felt immediate attraction and familiarity. Now I know that the comfort and familiarity is because he's my brother. Not my half-brother. He is my full brother. We've done everything a couple that has been together for 6 years could do. We've said we love each other, we've had sex, we've celebrated anniversaries, we've met each other's families. I'm just glad we both agreed early on that we don't want to have kids, so that has never happened. I don't want to deal with the health risks and have to raise a child and them know that their parents are siblings. I discovered it when we did the DNA test thing to see our ancestry and what exactly we are. I ordered 2 for us, we spit in the tube and sent it out. It took like a month for the results to come back and I was excited to see what we were, but before I could even get to that, I saw that we were siblings. I was shocked to say the least. I only just found out this information and I haven't told my boyfriend. I'm really hoping they made a mistake, but things are kind of starting to make sense to me now. We always get the "you guys look so alike" or "he's the male version of you." Long before this test, we've always gotten compared. We always just laughed it off, but I have spent the morning looking at pictures of us together and realizing that we really do look so alike. It's freaking me out, and I don't know what I should do. I still love my boyfriend/brother, and we have been together for 6 years. We have a house together and a whole comfortable life. I'm hoping that this test is wrong, and we'll do a real test soon, but I'm panicking. I still see him as the love of my life. I posted my original post about a year ago, and after a month or so I just never really checked this account. Well, I was scrolling TikTok the other day and saw my post read out loud on there, and it really was shocking. The video I saw was people on a stage reading it, and the crowd being shocked and disgusted, as if we grew up together and chose this. If when we met I knew he was my brother, I would not have gotten with him. Anyway, everyone is begging for an update. To make a long story short, my update is that we are still together and have been together. Rather than get a real DNA test done at a doctor, we just left it at that. We read that those ancestry tests are pretty accurate, and it was interesting to learn of other relatives we have. Because ancestry links you to other people that have taken the test and share your DNA. Something that was questioned a lot was, why would you 2 randomly both take DNA tests? And we are both adopted. We want to know what we are. Everyone else growing up could say like, my family is Irish, or my family comes from Germany, or my great-great-grandmother used to do this. We have none of that. We private our ancestry and decided not to get another test because that is just more people involved. I didn't even have to tell him when the news broke. We both had login information to the ancestry, so he saw it himself. It was a lot to get over and talk about. I have to admit, it was really hard to look at him in that way for a while. We slept in separate places. For a while I felt weird around him. But we're 6 years in by that time, and I still loved him and still do love him. My weirdness was different than how I feel with my actual brothers. I consider the kids of my parents to be my actual brothers. If I were to date one of them, I would feel odd because I grew up with them. With my boyfriend/brother, it was just a crazy, what are the odds feeling. And looking at him and seeing myself and seeing our parents that we never knew. We talked about it, and we have decided to just stay together. We don't want kids, and no one else knows, so who are we hurting? I don't care about all the comments that call us disgusting. I don't see him as a brother. I don't find the fact that he is my biological brother hot or exciting. I just see him as the man I love. We have been able to joke and find humor about it within ourselves. My boyfriend joked, we could have saved money on the ancestry and just sent 1 test in. Back when Game of Thrones was really popular, before that terrible ending, we went to a Halloween party and I dressed as Cersei. Recently he was like, I should have dressed like Jaime. This may seem weird or off-putting to people reading this, but it is how we find levity in it all. Another misconception I kept seeing was that we met in high school. We met when I was 20. We had a really normal relationship. It was from friends to best friends to couple. He is honestly the love of my life. We've been together 7 years now, and I've never gotten tired of him. I've never felt like I wanted to be apart from him. Even during the big discovery, I missed sharing a bed with him. I've never felt more at home and comfortable with a person, and it has nothing to do with him being my brother. No one will know. We aren't having children. We still do everything we did as a couple before finding out. I don't see him as my brother. I would actually feel gross if I slept with my real siblings. I met Danielle on a dating app, and we immediately hit it off. Conversation was super easy for us, so we swapped numbers and spent the next 2 weeks texting and talking on the phone. I explained early on that I want to take my time, because not only am I looking for something serious, but also have work commitments the next few months. I work in tech product sales, which can be very busy, and also involve me leaving the city for a few days at a time. She said she understood, and was also looking for something long-term. Great. We met the weekend before Valentine's, and had a nice restaurant date following by dessert and coffee. We finished with a kiss, and I walked her back to her car. It was definitely the best date I've been on since my last relationship. The next day I called her to say I was looking forward to seeing her again, and would plan something when I get back. I live in a major North American city, and from the 15th to 17th I was booked 3 hours away for on-site client meetings. I told her about this and let her know we'd keep in touch. On the Friday I'm due to get back, I get a message from a close female friend asking who I pissed off. I have no clue what she's talking about. She sends me a screenshot of my photo on what looks like a FB page, and tells me it's a private group where women call out men for cheating. It's called Are We Dating the Same Guy? And this particular group is just for people from my city. In the screenshot, multiple people are posting under my picture with mostly harmless comments like, "Oh, I went on a date with him years ago, he was okay." But there were others like "PM me for the tea," and one woman said, "He's an angry asshole, stay away for your safety." Because it's FB, I instantly recognized her name as someone I went on a date with last summer, who I had to block after she repeatedly tried to sell me her cat. Absolute lunatic. A few things about me. I am single. I have never been married, and my last relationship was over a year ago. I am very selective, and Danielle was the first date I'd been on since the end of summer. I am also a very private person. I don't use social media, and I don't kiss and tell. The fact that my photo is on this site is mortifying. What makes matters worse is when I got home I started getting texts from a bunch of other people I know, either laughing at me or calling me a womanizer. As of now I'm aware that several female friends have seen it, one coworker, my sister, and a woman I know who lives in the same building as me that excitedly grabbed me when I was leaving this morning to tell me, "I saw you on that Facebook group." Apparently it's a lot more popular than I realized. There's only one person who would have the motivation to do this, so I called Danielle on the weekend and asked her. Initially she denied it, but after some prodding that flipped to apparently her friend posting it. Why? Because a few of them had gotten tipsy together on Valentine's, as they're all single. My name came up after her friends asked why she wasn't with me that night after the great date she'd told them about. Apparently me not being around as I was leaving early the next morning for work was suspicious, as was the fact we'd been talking for multiple weeks, but she'd never seen my place. She gave them a pic I used on the dating app, and one of them posted it. She told me she was sorry, but that I seemed too good to be true. Her last relationship ended due to cheating, and she wanted to make sure I wasn't married or in a relationship. I told her I needed some time to think, and would be in touch. That was Saturday. We've been silent until today, where I woke up to dozens of MSGs from her saying things along the lines of, "I'm so sorry / I'm so angry with myself for this," and then the real truth. It was her that posted it. She wanted to come completely clean and apologized for lying, telling me she panicked when I confronted her, but she wants it all out now. She sent me screenshots, unprovoked, of the PM conversations she was having with women in the group about me. Aside from the one head case I mentioned earlier, there was nothing accusatory, but what I couldn't get over was how they were discussing me in such an open manner. It had nothing to do with whether I was single or cheating. It was stuff like, "He took me to this restaurant, he drives this kind of car, this is what he's like in bed, this is what his place is like, this is how much money I think he makes." I would never talk about exes or people I've dated like that. And if a guy tried to talk to me about Danielle like that, I'd think he was a fucking weirdo and tell him to stop. My two closest female friends are divided on this, so I'm here for advice. One thinks that women need to protect themselves against predators and violence, and groups like this are necessary. The other is angry on my behalf because the presumption of men being posted to that group are that they're cheaters or sketchy. Otherwise, why would anyone even post them there? I really don't know what to do next. I've never had to deal with anything remotely like this before. I liked Danielle, but it was one date. She also lied to me about it at first. This seems like a headache, and we've never even had sex yet. Is she going to get even more paranoid after that? It doesn't feel like we're compatible. This feels like the past 3 weeks of us talking have been one massive waste, and that actually stings because she's the first person I've really liked since my ex. Me, 40 male, and my wife, 37 female, have been married for 10 years, and we recently celebrated our anniversary. We have 2 wonderful kids together. Since the beginning of the year, things have been off between us. She's been acting strangely since the beginning of the year, irritable, avoiding me, and we haven't been intimate much. Some days she's happy, some others fully irritated. Sometimes she's a great mother to our kids, some other times she wishes they had never been born. Recently, I had to go to the urologist for a urinary tract infection, and the test suggested it might be an STD. This was a huge shock because I've never been with anyone other than my wife since we started dating. Right now, she's away at a so-called business seminar, of which I talked about in a different post. She has been keeping diaries for over a decade, and out of desperation, I read them for the first time ever. It turns out she's been having multiple sexual partners for the past 2 years. In particular, there was one affair that lasted over a year, and it seems part of her irritability was due to her lover moving on to someone else. I also discovered she has a hidden Tinder account too, and been meeting with other men regularly. I am devastated beyond words. I feel lost and unsure of what to do, especially since we have 2 little kids who mean the world to me. I need some advice on how to handle this situation. Should I confront her immediately? Should I consult a lawyer first? How do I even begin to process this betrayal and protect my kids through all of this? As everyone's suggesting, I'll try to consult discreetly with a lawyer ASAP, gather as much evidence as I can, get the STD treated, and as painful as it is, perform paternity tests on my kids. To be honest, I'm a complete mess right now and cannot think properly. All kinds of thoughts are crossing my mind. Part of me still loves her and wants to forgive her. The other is just full of disgust and hatred, and wishes I've never even met her at all. I wish I could just disappear right now. After my last post, my in-laws kindly offered to look after the kids while my wife was away at her seminar. They remain unaware of the turmoil I've been experiencing. I used this time to go through her diaries and take pictures of their contents. Each entry felt like a stab in the back, leaving me in a state of shock and disbelief. I just don't recognize anymore the person I thought I knew and loved for over a decade. To avoid going into too much detail, the revelations in the diaries would make any movie or TV series I've ever seen pale in comparison. She has been involved with at least 6 different men over the past 2 years. These affairs occurred not only during her so-called seminars, but also during short business trips, dinners, and other supposed work-related events. Meanwhile, I was at home, taking care of the kids and naively believing I was supporting her career. Some entries vividly describe how great these encounters were for her, all while expressing gratitude towards me for being a devoted husband and father, without a single trace of remorse. This lack of guilt and the extent of her deception make me question her emotional and mental state. While reading through the diaries, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair and was seriously contemplating suicide. In the end, I sought refuge with friends for a few days, as I felt I couldn't be alone, otherwise I'd do something that could never be taken back. They really supported me a lot during this time and helped me get in contact with a therapist. I'm now taking regular therapy sessions once per week. They also helped me in getting in touch with lawyers specializing in divorce. I'm also getting treatment for my STD as well. Returning home after picking up the kids from my in-laws was an emotionally devastating experience. I couldn't bring myself to smile at all. At some point, while contemplating all the possible ways I could end my life, my daughter just looked at me and saw my face. Without saying a word, she just came over and wrapped her arms around me. At that moment, I broke down, held her tightly, and burst into tears in front of her. She's my sweet angel, and the shame of having considered leaving my kids to suffer under their mother's disdain was almost too much to bear. For the first few weeks after finding out, I could barely sleep at all and had to depend on sleeping pills just to get through the nights. My motivation was at an all-time low, affecting both my home life and my work. I forced myself to continue exercising and found out it was the only thing that actually made me feel better during this time. To whoever said in the previous post that I shouldn't give up on doing exercise, thank you. You may have just saved my life. The stress intensified after my wife returned from her trip. Initially, it took all my energy to hide my disgust at her and the knowledge I had gained about her actions. I've somewhat got used to this now, but it remains emotionally draining. She did notice that something was off, but still appears to believe that I am entirely unaware of what has transpired. Her lack of shame is staggering. Just recently, she asked me to buy her the expensive gift I promised her for our 10-year anniversary, for which I made an excuse to not buy yet. Despite her going into another business trip, just the day after our anniversary, which was described in extremely painful detail in her diaries. To make matters worse, she was even arranging to meet her latest partner on the day of my birthday. Nowadays I've started to feel a lot better, thanks to exercise and therapy. I had never been to a therapist before in my life, and to be honest, I am regretting not having done it sooner. Despite my wife betraying me in the worst possible way, part of me still thought that maybe all of this was my fault. Maybe if I had done this, if I had put more effort into that, I blamed myself for a lot of things. My therapist helped me see through it that, while I could have done some things differently in the end, I cannot be held responsible for the actions she chose to take, and no one deserves to be betrayed in the way I was. If I'm at fault for anything, it's for blaming myself for everything, always putting her needs ahead of my own, and trusting her unconditionally without question. While it was extremely hard for me to balance work and looking after the kids alone every time she went on any of these trips, I always let her go after convincing myself that I was doing it for her, to support her business, to let her relieve stress from being at home, that this is what a supportive husband would do, and that if maybe I had a better job or made her happier, she wouldn't feel the need to escape from home. I'd be lying if I said I'm not depressed anymore, but I'm certainly doing much better these days. Nowadays, I feel more rage rather than sadness, and it is the rage that's keeping me going. My therapist advised me to channel this rage into the things I do, which has worked surprisingly well. I talked with 2 law firms about my situation, and was advised to collect more evidence, which I've been devoting myself to for the past few weeks. I've finished digitizing all of her diaries from the past 2 years, which were quite a lot. I got access to her computer, and found just way too many photos, chat conversations, and documents to help my case. She's been posting all of her adventures into a very distorted private group in Facebook, to which I've also taken plenty of screenshots of. I've compiled a list of all of her sexual partners in the diaries, and have been identifying them one by one on social media, etc. I've gathered everything I could on her current sexual partners, and managed to figure out where they live and/or work. Now I'm debating whether I should confront them or not. The things I've read in these diaries are so bizarre that I thought maybe she was just writing material for some sort of twisted novel. That is, until I found all the other stuff in her computer, etc. Maybe I'm broken myself as well, but a part of me is actually enjoying this process of gathering all these tiny pieces of evidence and information, cross-referencing them with her diaries, and finding everything I can about her and her lovers. Part of me wants to see her burn on social media by posting directly everything I've found out, since a big part of her business is centered around social media, but I'm refraining myself from doing so since this would also affect both me and the kids, as well as her parents, who have been nothing but kind to me since we got married. I'm also not sure if I should bring this to light to her parents as well, since this will probably devastate them. I'm planning on confronting her after talking further with the lawyers about how to make sure to gain custody of my kids. The country I live in has a rather unfair tendency of granting custody to the mother, even if she's unfit for it, setting the terms of the divorce and child support. A few weeks ago I was in full despair and had no idea what to do nor how to approach the situation. Nowadays, I feel that little by little I'm digging myself out of this hole I've been thrown into. Sorry if I don't respond to all your comments. Right now, my full attention is devoted to protecting my kids. A couple weeks ago I decided I wanted to surprise my wife with a kid-free night out. My parents live about an hour and a half away from us, and I arranged for the kids to stay with them for the weekend. Usually, when I go to my parents, I am gone until later in the evening. We spend all day there and leave around dinner time. This time, I was dropping the kids off and immediately going home, so I could surprise my wife, and we could go out as soon as possible. I had made reservations at a nice restaurant, and was hoping to go to a few places for some drinks first. I left at 8:30, and was back in our housing plan before 12:30. As I pulled onto my street, I saw a truck parked in front of my house. I did not recognize it. I assumed it was someone seeing the neighbors, though, because it's not that unusual for someone to park in front of our house. I parked a few houses away thinking I would sneak into the house and surprise my wife instead of pulling in the driveway and going in the garage. I went in through a basement door. I was as quiet as possible, but as soon as I walked in I heard her making sounds from the floor above. When I first heard it, I thought she was just by herself, maybe having some personal time. I didn't want to interrupt her privacy and embarrass her, so I was going to go back to my car and just go in the garage so she would know I was home. Then I heard a man's voice. I immediately felt sick. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. It is hard to describe how I felt in this moment. I decided to go upstairs. I had no desire to confront them. I just wanted to see what was going on. I moved slowly and quietly and went up the stairs. The door was halfway open. The kitchen was empty, but I could tell they were in the living room. It was obvious what was going on at this point by the sounds. There was no way for me to look in the living room without them seeing me. I pulled out my phone and opened my camera app. I put my phone just around the corner of a wall. This part is so hard to write. I could see my wife with a man I didn't recognize. I won't go into detail on what they were doing, but I think you can figure it out. I started recording it. I was thinking that I needed a record of it for whatever I decided to do in the future. I just stood there in my kitchen, watching this all unfold on my phone screen. I felt like I could just scream at any moment, but for some reason I just froze completely. This went on for several minutes. She finally jumped off of him and made a comment about going to the bedroom, and they went upstairs. She even made a comment about how much time they had left. I walked into the living room and found the guy's pants. I took his wallet out and took pictures of his driver's license. I know his name and his address now. I've never met him. I have no idea how my wife knows him. I left the house the same way I entered. I went back to my car and cried like the pathetic man I am. I decided to watch the video to make sure it recorded. I watched it all. I'll spare the details, but I sat in my car for at least half an hour. I couldn't drive to my parents and get the kids as I would have to explain why. I decided that I would pull in the driveway, open the garage, and just pretend like I was there to surprise her. I took my time getting into the house. I made a lot of noise. When I saw her, she was very flustered, asking me why I was home, etc. She was in a robe and said she was just getting ready for a bath. I told her about my plans, and she seemed excited. She poured us both a glass of wine and said we should pre-game before getting ready. I don't think I talked much really. She took me into the living room. I'm not proud of what I let happen. I could faintly see the guy sneaking downstairs and going to the basement stairs, but I didn't say or do anything. I just let my wife continue doing what she was doing to me. Since that day, I have watched the video of her repeatedly. I can't bring myself to make any decisions on what I should do next. She seems to know something is wrong with me, because she's asked a few times if I'm okay. I feel worthless, and every time I hit a low point, I watch that video again. I feel like I've watched it at least 10 times a day since I caught them. 10-day later update for you. I stopped watching the video after reading all the comments on my first post. It has helped clear my mind and allowed me to focus on next steps. This has allowed me to be mostly back to my normal self for both my kids and my job. I have gone through my wife's phone and found nothing. I searched the guy's name from the driver's license. I've figured out how they met. He's a landscaper. She was calling some a few months ago to clean up our yard and ended up getting some mulching and cleanup done. I've driven past his house many times. I think he is single as I couldn't find any records of other people living at that address. I've only seen a truck parked in the driveway when I have driven by. I have been avoiding my wife after the kids are in bed to try to limit one-on-one time. I don't want any awkward conversations, and I also don't want to have sex. I have mostly been successful with this, but did slip up one night when I had a little too much to drink. I hated myself for it the next day. I don't believe she has seen him since the day I caught them. I've been paying attention anytime she's gone. I obviously can't track her 100%. I've read about Apple AirTags, but I use Android. I'm guessing any app one would put on her phone may be discovered. I have installed a doorbell camera on our house though, so I can always see the street. When I did this, my wife didn't say anything. We continue to do things as a family as we normally would. I have done my best to not let her know what I know, and to continue to be a good dad to my kids. The weird thing I'm dealing with now is that she's planned a night out with a friend for drinks. It's a friend from work, so I don't know her at all, and I'm not connected with this person on social media. When she told me, I made up some excuse about work and said I couldn't watch the kids. She ended up getting our neighbor to agree to babysit. Now I'm debating if I should follow her to really see if she's meeting her friend or the guy. It seems like I'm heading towards a confrontation, either way, when I just want everything to go back to normal. I'm going to leave my house soon and pretend to be going to work. I'll probably just go to a bar to kill time until I can drive by the place she's supposed to be going to. I'm filled with fucking dread about all of this. On the night when she was going out with her friend, I still pretended I had work and left the house after the babysitter arrived. I went to a bar and had a few drinks. Then I drove over to the restaurant she said she was going to. I saw her car in the parking lot. I'm not going to lie, I was on edge and incredibly nervous despite the drinks earlier. I was so worried I would walk in and see her with that guy. I was hoping to sneak in and get a look without being seen, but that failed miserably. She saw me as soon as I walked in the door. She was with her friend and not the guy. We had the "what are you doing here? Thought you were working" expected conversation. I told her work ended early, so I wanted to stop by to say hi since we had a babysitter. I left after a couple drinks and went home to relieve the sitter. So many of you have commented on my last post that I need to confront her, and I decided in that moment that I would. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I got the kids to bed and waited for her to come home. I watched the video again to remind myself of what happened. When she got home, she was surprised I was still up and apparently could tell from the way I looked that something was wrong. I poured it all out on her. It probably wasn't fair of me. I didn't even let her sit down. I told her everything. I played part of the video to show her what I saw. I called her some harsh names, said she ruined our lives. In that moment, I was incredibly angry. She was very upset, heavily crying and shaking. She told me how terrible she felt about everything that happened. I told her she had to tell me everything that happened with that guy, and she laid it all out. She cheated on me twice with him. After the time I saw them, she cut things off because she knew it was wrong and she loves me. I asked her for proof, but she said she had already deleted and blocked him on her phone, Facebook, and Instagram. She did tell me that he is single and knew she was married. She asked me to delete the video, but I refused. She asked me why, and I really didn't have a reason other than I feel I need to hold on to it for now. She got a little angry at that and asked if I was keeping it to watch again. It was very late at this point, so we decided to go to bed and talk more the next day when we had more time to think. She continued to apologize repeatedly for what she did. We slept separately that night. Over the next few days, things between us seemed better. I felt some relief that it was all out in the open now. We have continued to talk, and it feels like we are on a path of staying together and moving past this. I have made it clear that she is never to see or talk to that guy again. While things feel like they are improving, I am still struggling to trust her. Worse yet is that I have a trip coming up for work, and I'll be gone for a few days. I've told her that I am not comfortable with leaving right now, but I can't skip this trip. My boss made it clear that I'm needed. She said I could put cameras up in the house to keep an eye on her if it would make me feel better. Sadly, I may do that. I'll be gone for at least 3 days. Overall, things are okay. Kids are oblivious that anything is going on, and it seems that slowly my wife and I will eventually get back to normal. I hope so, at least. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I have watched the video a few times since all of this. I'm thinking that I should probably delete it, so it's gone from my life. I don't know what's wrong with me. I once had ongoing elusive food poisoning that lasted for days, and towards the end of its cycle, I went for a lengthy walk on the beach near my home in the desperate hope that I could get some fresh air without shitting myself in front of the town's nightlife. That night I met a group of girls who were obviously drunk and crowding around one of their cars. They wolf whistled as I passed the car, and to my surprise I ended up hitting it off pretty well with one of the girls, Alyssa. We exchanged numbers, and I went home proud of my achievement. That night I started getting a flourish of random texts from her, telling me how hot I looked and that I seemed to be boyfriend material. I told her that I was interested too, and that we'd have to meet up again soon. This was back in the day that I was a poor studying uni student, Australia, so I arranged to meet her the following weekend after I'd knocked over my study commitments. She was reluctant to wait that long, and over the course of the week she texted me endlessly, increasingly more desperate ploys to see me earlier. I remember one day on lunch my uni friends, and I actually counted the amount of texts I'd received from her so far that day. It was around 90. They were a mix of really generic things like, "Miss you to come to mine now, I want to see you our sexy face now." I hardly responded to any of them, if she was lucky maybe 1 in 20. The relevant texts. Now, being a 20-something-year-old male, my obvious apprehension regarding Alyssa was mixed with a very primal, groin-stirring curiosity. She was so needy, so pushy. Would she be wild in the sack? Would be balance out and make a fun, feisty girlfriend? So I followed through with our original plans and met her that weekend. I picked her up and we saw a movie at the cinema. After not too long I observed that her text message, demeanor didn't match her face-to-face personality at all. She was timid, quiet, a little quizzical, but nothing like the love-hungry, horny, pushy crazy girl I'd spent the last week fighting myself over. I was beginning to ease up after the movie, something just clicked. She was just a bit bland for me. I decided that she wasn't for me, and that I was cool with that. She made small chit-chat, but wasn't overbearing or energy draining like I'd expected. So I took her back to my place, and we put a horror flick on. Nothing happened throughout the whole movie. No hand touching, no kissing, no moving closer or bed wrestling. I had decided that I must have been somehow thrown in the friend zone. So I took her back to her place. We were in idle out the front of her house, at maybe 11:30 p.m., and I told her it was fun hanging out and that we might do it again sometime. I considered the date a failure and was keen to just get out of there. She opens the door to leave, and suddenly turns around and lunges onto me, practically eating my face, sucking my lips and feeling me up through my jeans. I stopped her after a little while. Obviously I was prepared to give it a shot, but it just felt weird. She was noticeably hurt, and slammed the door and I drove away. By the time I reached my place, I'd received a number of texts, a chain of insults that ranged from, "Whatever, I don't want you anyway," to "fuck you asshole." I replied diplomatically once or twice, to be shut down by another hail of ill-prepared insults. These texts continued for days and days, and even well after I'd stopped texting back I'd received the occasional "asshole," out of the blue. My friends thought it was hilarious. Another story for you. I had a pretty bad breakup with a girl who at the time I believed I was in love with, so naturally I go for a rebound in the form of this cute Australian girl. We go out for like a month or so before I decide it's not working out. I end things. She didn't like this though, and kinda refused to acknowledge the breakup. Eventually I had to hack her Bebo account, this was a while ago, and dump myself via email, which she surprisingly fell for. Nearly a year later, I was in another relationship with an absolutely beautiful girl. Smart, funny, gorgeous, and everything that I believed was too much for me. However, she only frequents my city during the holidays, so a lot of our relationship was based online. Despite this, we spend a lot of time online. It's a beautiful online relationship. However, a month or so later I come online again. My name in between two little heart emoticons is missing, and she's off with me. In the end it emerged that I had been online frequently telling her that I was severely depressed due to the fact that my first girlfriend died in 9/11. Let me clarify something quickly. I'm from Plymouth, which is in England. Plymouth has an airport, the furthest it goes is London. I was 11 during 9/11, and awful with girls. Despite this, apparently my first love had gotten on a plane in Plymouth, and that plane flew over to New York and caused one of the biggest tragedies of all time. From Plymouth. I was bewildered that she believed that I said this. It then hit me. Crazy Australian ex knew my MSN details for some reason. Of course the relationship between me and the beautiful girl ended. She didn't know who was the real me after this whole affair. Still, 7 years later, it makes for a baffling story. A couple of months ago, I matched with Anna on Bumble. I thought we vibed really well. She had a really nice and funny demeanor, and we had lots of engaging conversations on FaceTime. We set up our first dinner date last week. I proposed a really nice restaurant, which was sort of far from where we lived, but I really wanted to treat Anna because I thought she was special. Anna asked if I could pick her up, and then after the date drop her off at her best friend's place. I didn't mind at all. Anna said she had movie night with her best friend. I picked Anna up, and we went to the restaurant. The date went better than expected. We vibed really well. Anna also had drinks since I was the designated driver. However, right at the end of the date, Anna asked if I would drop her off at Josh's. I was initially confused and then realized Josh was her guy best friend. Anna instantly realized what she said, and it sort of became awkward. Anna apologized, and I told Anna there was no reason to apologize. I was just curious about who Josh was, so I asked Anna, and Anna said he was her guy best friend, and they occasionally have movie nights. Anna said she wanted to be honest with me because she really liked me and saw a future with me, and she admitted they sometimes make out during these movie nights, but it doesn't go further than that. I appreciated Anna's honesty, but this whole thing felt like a huge gut punch. I was maybe in my feelings, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I told Anna to just ask Josh to pick her up, and I paid for my portion of the dinner and left. Anna looked really sad when I ended the date and left. I felt sort of guilty about it later and called my sister to ask her if what I had done was right. My sister said I shouldn't have left Anna stranded at the restaurant, especially after Anna was really sweet and honest with me. I told my sister how I could be expected to take Anna for a really fancy dinner and then drop off her at her guy best friend's house, where she would then make out with him. I had enough self-respect left not to do that. Since I left Anna at the restaurant last week, she texted me a couple of times, but I just ignored those messages. I opened the messages a couple hours ago, and I was sort of surprised. Instead of lashing out at me, she just apologized again and said she was willing to stop seeing Josh if it meant we could continue our relationship. She said after the dinner, she just took an Uber back home and didn't go to Josh's. I texted Anna that there was no reason to apologize and I shouldn't have left her stranded at the restaurant, and I should have also paid for her meal, since I was the one who invited her to the expensive restaurant. I asked Anna for her Venmo, but Anna said she didn't care about the money and asked if we could continue our relationship. However, I didn't have the same feelings for Anna anymore, so I texted Anna up front that I don't think we're compatible, and I don't want to continue this. We chatted a bit more, and Anna was very respectful of my decision, but admitted she was sad. I too admitted it was tough, but it's best for everyone that this doesn't continue further. That was the final text, and I definitely think there are valuable lessons learnt from this entire thing. Didn't happen today, but quite a while ago. Just heard this Carl Pilkington thing about something similar, and remembered this. Anyhow, back then, I was feeling a bit lonely and was going through a bit of a dry spell. I matched with a few bots and generally uninteresting people, some of whom were so dumb, I actually felt like doing anything sexual with them might be considered statutory rape. At some point, however, I matched up with this incredibly stunning woman, who definitely piqued my interest for she was both beautiful and intelligent. She also had a great speaking voice, and I was definitely keen on seeing how far this could go. Maybe even relationship material, who knows? I discovered that she was really into yoga and everything else that comes with a yogi's lifestyle. The only reason that this is worth mentioning is because she thought I looked like I was into yoga as well, but I was not, although at the time I was seriously considering giving it a shot. We go on back and forth mostly about yoga and her lifestyle, which was fascinating to me. She would constantly make remarks about how impressed she was that I never asked her anything sexual, and told me all of her horror stories with other dudes. The reality is, I find it really weird and awkward trying to ask girls for sexual favors on the internet. I don't know why, but I'm far smoother with this sort of thing in person. Either way, we set a date to meet, and all was well. If anything sexual were to happen, it would be then. 2 days before we were set to meet, completely out of the blue, she sends me a photo of her lying in her underwear, with a bit of a tease situation going on. Then she sends me a video of her lying on her tummy. Being the awkward F I was, I had no idea how to react to that message and thought that she'd shown me some, so I shall do the same? I do a similar thing in photo form, showing her a bit of my behind mostly as a joke, but secretly hoping she'd enjoy that and send some more, or maybe get a looking forward to meeting you thing. Without a word, she blocks me off of everything, and that was the end of that. So to sum up, I meet someone cool on Tinder and plan to meet her. She showed me her ass 2 days prior. I felt compelled to do the same and never heard back from them anymore. I'm glad this was amusing to many of you. It's cool to see that all the dudes think this is a huge no-no, but the girls totally dig my response. It's quite an interesting twist, I have to say. Just wanted to clarify a few things. I did send her a compliment, and she responded to the compliment. The fuck-up was really me feeling weird afterwards for not sending something back. Keep in mind, I was completely new to this online dating malarkey. It was definitely meant for me because of the above, but also, she sent me a voice note on WhatsApp saying something about them being a little gift. I'm also fairly certain she was a real person. We spoke on the phone a few times and sent each other photos of us doing the same stuff. Like if I said I was going shopping, she'd send me a cute photo of her unpacking her groceries or whatever. Also, again, this happened a long time ago. I'm quite happily married at the moment, so I'm not depressed because she didn't want my dick. Was I confused? Sure, but I moved on fairly quick. You can stop sending me aggro PMs about being a bitch for still hanging on to this thing. It's just a funny story. Enjoy it, or check out something else. It was my 18th birthday, and as a newly minted adult, I was enjoying my grown-up-ness by getting as drunk as I could. I'm with my friends in this pub in town, and we're gathered round a table. There's maybe 6 of us. A couple of tables over, there's a group of girls, and there's maybe 6 of them. One of them catches my eye when I look over, and she's stunning. Long red hair, bright blue eyes, full pink lips. I look away and carry on drinking, but she keeps catching my eye again and again. We do that thing where you both catch each other looking, then pretend you weren't looking at all whilst doing it even more. Eventually I need another drink, so I get up and head to the bar, and I notice her doing the same. At this point, I notice her body. She's short, but with a great figure. Breasts that are good and round and big, small waist, wide hips, great bum, everything. I'm pretty much fully in lust with this girl, and we've not even met. We get to the bar, and I let her order before me. She gets something like a lemonade, unusual for that pub, but I figure someone's got to be the designated driver, and it's probably her. I order a pint for myself, turn round to head back, and she's there right behind me. We get to chatting, and she tells me her name's Helena. I make some kind of Shakespeare joke, she laughs, and I'm in. The rest of the night, I talk mostly to her, though it's cool, because the other lads have descended on the group of girls at the other table. The evening wears on, and eventually we get to the, well, are we gonna fuck, or just agree to meet each other again, or fuck off and pretend this never happened stage. We go for the former. We go back to my place, being very careful not to wake my parents up because I'm still shit and live at home, and have a great night. Long story short, we ended up going out for a while, always meeting out somewhere, then heading back to mine. Eventually we drift into actually being a couple, and from there we start to do more couple-y things. And that's when the crazy leaks in. She starts arguing with me about every little thing imaginable, from not saying hello in the right way, to not being there to wake her up at precisely 6 hours, 1 minute, and 9 seconds in the morning, or whatever. Every argument escalates into whatever the fuck she's decided to rant about, and always ends the same way. She threatens to dump me. I coax her back, we kiss, fuck, everyone's happy. After maybe a month and a half of this or so, I get bored of it all. I do the decent thing, and take her out for coffee to a cozy little cafe, tell her in the best way I can that we're not working out, and it's all pretty surprisingly amicable. Except it's not. The phone calls start. Always from a private number, always of crying. At first, to my mobile, then to my home phone. Always a private number, always crying. I know she's faking it, because if I never answered the phone, my parents would have a friendly little chat, then hand the phone to me, and immediately it's like Niagara Fall of fucking tears. Then the emails. Weird, ranty emails of gibberish and threats, and pleading to take me back. Hundreds of them. There'd be days when they'd come every 5 minutes, days when there'd be nothing at all. I changed my number to get rid of her, got a whole new mobile number, and we went X-directory with our number. Changed my email too. I still got them for about 6 months after, but eventually they stopped. And that should have been the end of it. Little did I know. I started going online, on various forums, games, etc. On one such forum, I struck up a friendship with a girl on there. I know she was a girl because she showed me pictures of herself with little scribbled, HIOFAB I am random username, and whatever, which is pretty conclusive as evidence goes. We had a great time chatting and whatever, and we had so much in common, it was completely insane. Like, not only did she like the same things I did, but she was this utterly stunning little brunette, like a proper English rose. Anyway, eventually we started going out, having little Skype chats, though she never went on cam, which I was cool with because I looked like shit a lot of the time. Things started out well, but over time, she got a bit too clingy for my liking. She'd ask where I'd been if I was a minute late, or got jealous if she'd seen a picture of me on Facebook with another girl. She got upset at the slightest thing, or angry if I mentioned another girl's name, even if it was, oh, Louise said she liked my work, when Louise was the lecturer for my course. Eventually I got pissed off, dumped her, and we had a nice clean break. I avoided those forums, changed my Skype because, remember, I'd had bad times with my previous ex and communication stuff, and that was that. Not learning my lesson at all, I went on different forums, found another girl, and got to know her too. This one was a tan blonde, all boobs and legs and sexy as fuck Australian accent. She liked most of the same things I did, with enough difference that we could teach each other how to do things, how to appreciate things, how to like things. She was laid back, too, and compared to the latest ex, she was a breath of fresh air. If I got on Skype half an hour later than I'd said I would, she was cool with it. If I spent a conversation talking about my lecturer, using her name every dozen words, she'd bitch along with me, making me laugh, making me smile, making me love. Eventually, I talked of meeting her, though it was a long way from England to Sydney, and expensive as anything. I was willing to fly to meet her, because I wanted to see her face to face, to see the places she'd told me about, to go to the clubs and bars and restaurants she told me she loved. I wanted to hold her in my arms and kiss her, and actually have a proper girlfriend again. She immediately broke up with me, saying I'd only be disappointed with the reality. Then came the latest girl. She was Canadian, brunette, something of a rock chick, completely different to my usual kind of girl. We met on some chat site I used when I was bored, got talking, swapped details, etc. She introduced me to a ton of music I'd never even considered listening to, and I did the same for her. If I complained about something, she told me to man the fuck up. If I turned up late, she told me it was fine because time is something the man makes us believe in. She was the coolest fucking girl I'd ever known. Again we dated on Skype and whatever, again we talked about meeting, again she broke up with me, saying that it had all just been in fun or whatever. It was cool. It was amicable and fine, and that was that. All this happened over a couple of years, with me being with each girl anywhere between 4 and 6 months, and my between times being maybe 1 to 3 months. I was a quick worker, and fuck the rebound shit. Anyway, I came back to my hometown for the holiday. I think it was reading week or something, and fuck being on campus then. I was wandering along the road, when who should I see but Psycho Girl. Rather than avoiding her, I carried on walking. She came up to me, said she had something to tell me, and we needed to talk desperately. I made all kinds of excuses, but each one she batted aside until she wore me down. We went to the pub, and she told me something that basically terrified me. She hadn't wanted to give up on me, so she'd used what she knew of me to find places I'd go online. She'd made different accounts, lots of different accounts, in the hopes that she'd find me, so she could talk to me, and try and win me back. Except she'd made fake accounts, so I wouldn't immediately ignore her. See where this is going? Yep. Every one of the girls I'd dated had been her, using pictures of friends, using fake accents, pretending to not know things she knew. She'd followed me across at least a dozen different websites, stalked me across hundreds of posts and threads, and all the time had made me believe I was talking to completely different people. I didn't date anyone for a couple of years after that. I don't know what came of her. After that, she sort of disappeared from my life, and I haven't seen her since. I went out briefly with a couple of other girls, but only ones I'd met face to face, who didn't look anything like her at all. I don't know if she still follows me about online, or if she does, if she knows about this account. But if you're looking at this, hi Helena. A few years ago, my anxiety was high. I was already at a point in my life where I thought I was a little out of it, but that was amplified by a lot when I kept repeatedly hearing noises outside my window. Like every single night, it just wouldn't stop. I would finally get so freaked out I'd go wake my parents up and get them to look outside, but they never found anything. I started to think I was crazy or just subconsciously seeking attention. One morning, my grandfather discovered one of our lawn chairs beneath our bathroom window. It's pretty high up and the bottom pane is fogged, so I'm not sure the chair even helped, but it was left there regardless. The next night, heard sounds again, nothing. The night after, however, we checked outside and discovered something that made my stomach churn. A small stepladder was sitting directly outside of my window, back just enough to allow someone to sit on it, but still see. On my windowsill was a bag of now-cold McDonald's, which is just up the street from me. Most of the food was still in there, but still, some fucker had been watching me doing absolutely nothing of interest in my room, without me knowing for I don't know how fucking long. The cops were called, nothing happened. I felt crazier than ever. No one was to be found, but at least we had some evidence that someone that shouldn't be hovering around our house was at my window, watching intently through the blinds, in a space between the two curtains. Heard noises the next night. Ran outside, nothing. Earlier in the night, I'd sewn my curtains together, which hopefully made it harder to see in. Apparently it did, because now the fucker had taken to climbing on top of our air conditioning unit, and from there, climbing onto our Herbie/garbage can, then standing on that, so that he could see above where the drapes went. The handprints and shoe prints were left on the lid to prove it. I should also mention that there were now holes in my screen, and I heard these holes be created. He took a stick and sharpened it somehow. We found it outside my window, and was trying to stealthily break away the screen bit by bit. The hole is still there. The next night, I distinctly heard the gravel near my window crunch. There was simply no mistaking my sound. As stealthily as I could, I let out a small moan he surely heard and rolled just out of view, as if I were sleeping, then pressed myself against a wall out of view of the window, very quietly opened my door, and crept down the hall. My heart was pounding. Normally I knock on my parents' door, but I knew the slightest sound would make the bastard bolt, so I quietly opened their door and sneaked in, then informed them that there was, without a single doubt, someone outside my window. They didn't mind the intrusion and got up, got dressed, formulated a plan, and crept to the back door. I ran to the bathroom to stand on the edge of our tub and peek out the window just as the back door was thrown open, and my parents ran outside like morons. And sure enough, they saw him. They started screaming as the man leapt off of the Herbie and bolted down our driveway, which was what I was looking at. They screamed all sorts of horrible things at the tops of their lungs. "You sick motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking kill you," from my dad. "You fucking freak," from my mom. He ended up escaping across the street, hiding behind a house adjacent to us. The balls on this bastard. He kept peeking out at us as we all stood outside, but we wanted to leave him there so the cops could finally nab him. They were called, they came, and they searched, but they never found him. Bastard must have hopped a fence or some shit. Still to this day I hear sounds outside my window, even in the dead of winter, but he's never out there. He might have just been a peeper, but he targeted me specifically, and for months, until he was almost caught. What really pisses me off is that once he lost interest in me because it was too unsafe, he moved on to a house down the street, with 2 little girls. He actually managed to get in through their window, and their dad caught him just standing in the middle of the room, watching them sleep, jacking it, I think. I still don't think he was caught, even then. All I know is that it could have been way worse, but it messed me up. I trust the men in my neighborhood even less now. The men around here stare very blatantly. I've been chased home by one. I've had a guy try to jerk me into his car when I was passing him, telling him no, I didn't need a ride, and to leave me alone. All these years later, I still hear shit outside my window and freak out. It's fucked up. I turn out my lights entirely to exercise. I do my best to avoid the windows when I undress. It just scarred me, even though it wasn't a huge deal. Back in the 90s, I was happily married to my wife, or so I thought. We both worked in the catering industry, myself mainly as a chef, and my wife as a barmaid waitress back. Then it was the norm for us both to work unsocial hours, always working, when everyone else was at play, and for people to move around a lot, so we didn't always work in the same place. Well, my wife had this girlfriend that was always dripping in money, yet she didn't work and always had a man hanging from her arm. We often wondered how she managed it, speculating that it must be drug money, or something like that. Well, long story short, my wife found out she was pregnant and had a miscarriage which floored her, and she had to give up work for a bit, which meant I had to double down with my work, doing more hours. So during this time she started to spend more time with her friend. As they grew closer, often spending the night there, I'd drop her off and pick her up when I finished work. The bills were beginning to mount up with just the one wage coming in, so I took a second job driving a taxi. It was flexible and good, manage it around my main job. Meantime, my wife started using her new makeup, getting dressed up to go to her friends, giving the excuse of "you have seen her, I just want to fit in," which, knowing what girls are like, I paid no attention to this. But my wife now seemed to be having money, just enough to cover the little things that most wouldn't notice. I wasn't home much, working 2 jobs, so I was grateful my wife had a good friend who was always willing to have my wife around as company. I was thinking, I'm putting in the long yards now for a payoff later on with work, getting the bills down, just putting my head down and getting on with things. Obviously, as we didn't see much of each other, our sex life were suffering to the point it was literally non-existent, which was beginning to take a toll on our relationship. Things all came to a head one night. I was out in the taxi. It'd been a quiet night until I get a call on the radio for a pickup in a really nice bit of town. I got there, and as instructed, I just hit the horn and stayed in the car. 2 guys, well-dressed, got in the back seat along with my wife's girlfriend between them, and they gave me the address to drop them off. It was her house, so I thought nothing of it. She hadn't noticed it was me driving as the 3 of them started to fool around on the back seat as talking my wife's friend, telling them how much they would enjoy her friend when they met her. Apparently, she's a very high-demand girl, so it was going to cost them extra. Got to the house, and as they got out, one of the guys handed me a 20-pound tip, which I was happy at. I looked across to the door of the house, only to see my wife open the door dressed in only her underwater and high heels. She smiled and hugged her friend, then kissed the guys as they went into the house. I was flabbergasted. Not knowing what to do, I drove around the corner and parked up, just sitting there trying to process what I'd seen. I got out of the car, walked back to the house, crept up to the lounge window, and perked in. What I saw took my breath away. All 4 of them were naked, and my wife was being fucked by the guy who tipped me, and she was putting on quite a show with him. I watched in disbelief for a few minutes, and the guy finished with her and handed her to the other guy, who started fucking her as well. I went back to the car, called in for the night, and went home. In the morning, my wife called me to pick her up. I went and got her, not talking all the way home. When we got into the house, my wife asked me what was up, why I was so quiet. I ignored her for a bit and made some coffee She didn't stop asking me again. I just said I saw you last night. You didn't see me. I was the driver who dropped those guys off to you. She paused for a moment before, crumpling to the floor, crying, begging me to forgive her. As I went upstairs and started packing her bags were done, I told her. She begged me to let her explain. I needed to hear this for my own sanity. So let her tell me why she had done it. She explained that her friend, and how she got her money, was from escort work, and she had convinced my wife to try it. She only did it once to try get some money, so I could cut back my hours, but she found it made her feel something inside, as we haven't been intimate for so long, so she did it again, telling herself this is the last time, but she was hooked. She eventually confessed she'd been working as an escort for 6 months, but it was okay as she'd saved up so much money to pay the bills. I asked her straight there, and then would you ever told me if I hadn't caught her? She just looked at the floor and said, no. Are you going to stop now? No, was the reply. It's just sex. I don't love these men. It's just sex with them. That was enough for me. I throw her bags out the front door. Will go live with your whore friend then. As I throw her out as well. As far as I'm aware, she did go to her friends. My divorce papers were sent there for her, and as far as I'm aware, she's still there today, both of them in their 50s, still FING for money. As for me, I'm now married to my wife with 2 great kids and a few grandkids. Life definitely changed that day for me, and I haven't looked back, now owning my own hotel, and business is doing well. I never thought I'd be in a situation like this. I guess no one does. You don't go into a relationship expecting betrayal. But there I was, staring at my phone, knowing my life was about to change in a way I never saw coming. Sarah and I had been together for 6 years. We weren't just dating, we lived together, had a joint savings account, and were planning a future. Marriage was something we had talked about casually, never with a set date, but we both knew we were headed in that direction. Or at least, I thought we were. She worked in marketing, a demanding job that often had her attending work events, networking functions, and conferences. I trusted her completely. She was always independent, had her own friends, and I never wanted to be the kind of guy who checked in too much. Maybe I should have. The signs were small at first, her phone suddenly getting more privacy settings, more nights out with work friends, a little more distance between us. I chalked it up to stress. I even asked her about it, and she told me I was overthinking, that I needed to relax. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Then, one evening, my friend Josh sent me a message. Hey man, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I saw Sarah last night. She was with some guy. They were close. Too close. He sent a picture. It wasn't anything explicit, just Sarah leaning into a guy at a bar, laughing, her hand resting on his thigh. Maybe not damning evidence, but definitely not nothing. I felt sick. I told myself there had to be an explanation. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I needed to see for myself. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. I hated myself for it, but I needed the truth. And I found it. Messages. Flirty ones. Hidden under a different name in her contacts. Meeting up, sneaking around. She had been sleeping with him for at least 3 months. 3 months of my life where I thought things were just stressful, where I thought we were fine. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. I needed time to process. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I told her we needed to talk. I sat her down, showed her the messages, and asked her to explain. She froze. I could see her mind working, scrambling for a way out. Then the excuses started. It wasn't serious. I never meant to hurt you. I was confused. Then came the guilt trip. You've been so distant lately. I thought maybe you weren't in love with me anymore. I just sat there, listening to her try to rewrite history, trying to make me the reason she did this. I didn't yell. I didn't lose my temper. I just told her to pack a bag and leave. She cried, tried to touch my arm, begged me not to make any rash decisions. But I had already made up my mind. She moved in with a friend. A few weeks later, I started sorting out the logistics, our finances, our apartment lease. She tried to reach out, tried to meet up to talk things through. I refused. There was nothing left to say. I wasn't going to waste my time demanding apologies or trying to understand something I could never make sense of. She made her choice. I made mine. Now, months later, I'm still adjusting to the silence of living alone again, to the shift from we to me. Some days I miss her. Not who she was at the end, but the person I thought she was before. But I know better now. Update for you all. I figured some closure might be useful for others going through something similar. Sarah has tried to reach out more times than I can count. At first, it was desperate apologies, then long-winded explanations, then attempts at nostalgia, sending pictures of old trips, trying to remind me of the good times. We actually ran into each other completely by accident. At all places, the grocery store. I was in the frozen food aisle, just grabbing some basics, when I heard someone call my name. I turned around, and there she was, standing there awkwardly, holding a basket full of items. She looked nervous, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should say anything. I gave her a small nod, acknowledging her presence, but said nothing. She took that as an invitation to talk. "Hey, how have you been?" she asked, her voice softer than I remembered. I shrugged. "I've been good." It was the truth. I had been focusing on myself, hitting the gym more, reconnecting with old friends, finally picking up some hobbies I had neglected. I wasn't bitter anymore. Just done. She sighed, shifting on her feet. "I miss you." I just looked at her for a second, then replied, "I don't." That was the end of it. She didn't try to follow me, didn't plead or make a scene. She just stood there as I turned away and walked to the checkout line. That moment made me realize the sight of her didn't stir up any emotions. No anger, no sadness, no nostalgia. Just indifference. And that, more than anything, felt like the biggest win of all. I don't even know where to start. My hands are shaking as I type this, and I'm not sure if I even want to post it, but I just need to get it out. I feel like I'm losing my mind, like the last few years of my life weren't even real. I, 32 female, have been married to my husband Jake, 35 male, for 5 years, together for 7. We met at a bar of all places. He wasn't even my type at first, but he was so charming, so easy to talk to. He made me laugh, made me feel safe. It wasn't a crazy love story or anything, but it felt real. He was my best friend, my partner. Or at least, I thought he was. I don't even know how to explain the feeling I've had the past few months. Like, something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. We still got along, still had date nights, still functioned like a normal couple. But it was like he wasn't there anymore. Emotionally, physically. Sex became rare, and when it did happen, it felt robotic, like he was just going through the motions. I asked him about it a few times. He'd always brush it off. Just stress, babe. Work is killing me. I'm just getting older, you know? And I wanted to believe him. I did believe him. Until last Friday. He told me he was going out with some co-workers for drinks. I didn't think anything of it at first, but as the night went on, something just nagged at me. He wasn't texting me like he usually did when he was out. No updates, no on my way home soon text. Just radio silence. And I don't know why, but for the first time in my entire marriage, I did something I had never done before. I opened the Find My iPhone app. I stared at the screen for a long time. He wasn't at a bar. He wasn't anywhere near the part of town he said he'd be in. His location showed a small hotel downtown. My heart started pounding. I wanted to be rational. Maybe he had a work event at the hotel. Maybe someone got too drunk and he was helping them. But deep down I knew. I just knew. I don't even remember driving there. I just remember standing in the lobby, feeling like I was outside of my own body. I walked up to the front desk and God, I don't even know how I got the words out. I asked if my husband checked and I showed here a picture. The woman behind the desk gave me this look, like she knew exactly what was going on. And then she just sighed and said, "Room 214. I swear I almost threw up right there. I took the stairs because I couldn't stand the thought of being trapped in an elevator, alone with my thoughts. Every step felt heavier than the last. My whole body was screaming at me to turn around, to just leave and pretend I never saw that location. But I couldn't. When I got to the door, I knocked. Nothing. Then I heard movement. And then his voice, one moment. The door cracked open, just a sliver, and there he was. Shirtless. Eyes wide. Panicked. And that's when I pushed the door open. There he was. And there was Aaron. His best friend. The one he always said was like a brother to him. The one he spent so much time with. The one who, I suddenly realized, had probably been in his life in a way I never even knew. Aaron was in bed, scrambling for the sheets, looking just as horrified as Jake did. And I froze. I wish I could say I screamed at him, that I threw things, that I went full-on crazy wife. But I didn't. I just stood there, staring, feeling the entire foundation of my life collapse under me. Jake said my name, like he was trying to explain. And I just laughed. Not because it was funny. It wasn't. It was the most painful thing I've ever felt in my life. But my body didn't know what else to do. I laughed so hard I thought I was going to choke on it. I had spent some time thinking I was the problem. Thinking I wasn't sexy enough, fun enough for him. And the whole time, I was just his beard. I was his shield, his cover, his excuse to live a lie. When I finally stopped laughing, I looked him right in the eye and said, "You never loved me. You loved what I did for you." He didn't deny it. I turned around and walked out, ignoring his pathetic "wait, please," like I owed him anything. Now I'm sitting here in my apartment, surrounded by pictures of a life that was never real. I feel like I've lost everything. Not just my husband, but the truth. Because what the hell was my marriage if not a complete and total lie? I don't know where to go from here. I don't even know who I am without him. I just know I can't be this woman anymore. So me, 22 male, and my ex, 22 female, were together for half a year. I had always treated her the best I could. Her friends and family would tell her how absolutely lucky she was to have met me, and for the first time I felt accepted. About 3 months into our relationship, we're out with her friend getting her nails done. No big deal to me. She lets me use her phone for something, and a snap from a guy I've never seen before goes off. I try to not be nosy, but she always gives me updates about herself, and if people add her, so I had found it just weird. I go through and find her role-playing with another guy. She had sent him our personal video as well, something I was uncomfortable making in the first place, but she wanted to record and push. I find out video, her nudes and weeks' worth of cheating. I was an idiot and took her back after she said she would change and prove it. I went against my instincts and took her back anyways. Another 3 months go by with zero issues. She's happy, she's constantly reminding me how much I make her happy, please her, wants to marry me, have my kids, get a hotel room, all types of that. When she comes over again, at the start of the year we fall asleep at my house. She's asleep in my arm when I just had that shaky gut feeling. I couldn't shake it, so I checked her phone. I found nothing on Snap, so I checked her Messenger and messages. That's where I had found her texting her ex-boyfriend, who she claimed up, down, left, right, that she hated him, ruined her life, and everything. They had been video calling for the whole month with some other person who she, my ex, refused to tell me who they were talking about. After that I went to Messenger where I found a message saying, "I'll do it after my boyfriend's." In my head I was thinking, do what, who is this guy? I click it, and for the entire month and longer they've been video calling. She's sending him nudes, and the whole time the only thing I could focus on was, I'm with my BF. I'm at my BFS, she would keep saying boyfriend, knowing she shouldn't be doing it. Well, after I find out me and her split, she calls to talk it out, and I start asking how long she's done this. She says not long, but I've learned that she is a pathological liar. She then says the guy she sent the nudes to was none other than her cousin, who I had met a month prior for Christmas. They were messing around at this point. I have since learned that she's lied about her friend, who has the same name as me. She wanted me and him to be friends so she could hang out with him. Turns out they were FK buddies for years. Then she introduces me to her friend's friend, making it seem like she knows him only through her friend. Turns out they were also FK buddies. And a week after we break up, she is messaging me crying how she wants me back. Another chance. She'll change, blah blah blah. Turns out she was having sex with the sex guy she wanted me to be friends with that very same night, as she was trying to have me come over and fix things. Sorry if it's hard to follow. Punctuation has never been a strong suit of mine, not as typing moral of the story. Just because they say it doesn't mean they'll do it. Please pay attention to actions more than words. An update for you all. She has reached out to me multiple times in attempts to get me back, and I decided to talk to her and listen to what she had to say. At this point I have genuinely no interest in her. She basically goes on to tell me how she only wants me. I found her new Facebook account with a picture of her kissing one of the guys. She wanted me to be friends with the same week that she's actively telling me she only wants me. To clarify, it was the very first of on the new account. She then changed it 3 times. To try and cover it, I guess? I then asked if she even knew how I felt, and she would respond with the most base-level answers. I asked her if she knew why she was apologizing, and she then took 2 minutes to type a perfectly paragraph capitalized and punctuated apology. She spells your "you are." I want to take a moment to sincerely express how sorry I am for the way things ended between us. Looking back, I realize there were moments I could have handled differently and feelings I didn't fully appreciate at the time. I never meant to hurt you, and it truly pains me to think of the impact my actions had on our relationship. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on our shared experiences, and I genuinely regret any pain I caused you. You deserve happiness and love, and I hope that you can find it, whether with me or someone else. I'm grateful for the memories we made, and want you to know that I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. She has never typed like this, and after she sent it immediately went back to the extremely typical "please." Okay, yeah, and super simple responses. She has made multiple accounts, I have blocked them all. I am genuinely trying to move on with my life. Next week I'm signing up for a MMA gym, so I can compete as an amateur, something I've always wanted since middle school. I am not going back to her, and I've decided to keep working on myself. I've started eating a little better, and this past week I've been back in the gym. I've been gone for about a month. I used to go regularly, and it just kind of feels nice to be back on track. I know it probably sounds bad, but hear me out. In my head it's a long story, but I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. Sorry if it sounds choppy. Also, English isn't my first language. Last year I had to move in with my parents because I was having a hard time finding a new place to rent after a really bad breakup. My parents and I don't get along great for a lot of reasons, and it made everything a lot worse. So to get out of that, I eventually decided to apply for some jobs in other places. At the time I really didn't want to, since I'd lived in that city my whole life, and I liked my job, but I just couldn't stay with my parents anymore. I found a job pretty quickly because this hotel was reopening after changing owners, and they weren't finding staff easily, so I ended up moving here in October. In the beginning I wasn't socializing much because it's really hard to find friends here when everyone already knows everyone. My country and region are doing well, no confirmed cases in town yet, but it definitely didn't help with making friends. I've also been pretty busy because I decided to buy a house. It just kind of happened because my boss knew the previous owners, and it was super cheap since it needed a lot of work, but it definitely made this move feel very permanent. Then in May this guy, let's call him Eric, and I got stuck in the social distancing queue outside the pharmacy together and started talking. I told him I was new, and he invited me to a barbecue with his friends. NGL, I'm not great with new people, but they made me feel welcome and were all very nice. After that we just kept hanging out, mostly me and Eric, which I thought was because he was quite careful during these times and only saw his big group of friends outside. Plus we were the only two who weren't in a relationship or had kids, so it made sense in my head that we were alone a lot. I'd cook him dinner/lunch, I'm a chef, and he'd show me great hiking places and help out a lot with the renovations on the house. I also started telling him about the breakup and stuff, and even though I feel like I've moved on, it was still nice that he was so understanding. Like, I always thought it sounded so cheesy when people talked about knowing like a week into a friendship or relationship that it was going to be different, but that's the only way I can describe what it's felt like. I promise now that I'm writing it down it's so obvious, but I honestly didn't think much of it since I've never dated a guy before. Then like 2 to 3 weeks ago he called and asked if I wanted to have dinner on my next night off, and also said just you and me. He seemed kind of weird and formal, but I assumed it was something else going on, and just said yes. To which he responded, "It's a date then," and I assumed he meant that as a joke-y line because I have friends who have in the past. He picked this restaurant in another town that was relatively fancy that I'd never been to, and I drove him home afterwards, and he told me good night and that he'd had a great time. Usually we're not that formal with each other, but we weren't really acting that different during dinner, so again I didn't think much of it. Then over the next week or so he started sending hearts and texts and would call me some pet names here and there, which is the first thing that stood out to me a lot. Then earlier this week he grabbed my hand while we were out during his lunch break, and that's when it finally clicked. It really caught me by surprise, and I didn't know how to react, so I tried to play it cool and go along with it. Then yesterday he texted and asked if we were still on for our movie night on Sunday, and I just said, "Yeah, of course," and I'm starting to panic a bit. I grew up pretty conservative, and I guess didn't question my sexuality a lot, even when I got to university, and a lot of other people were. I've always been awkward when it comes to that stuff, and I never really made the first move with any of the girls I've dated. But I've been thinking about it for the last few days, and I've realized I really like him, and all the stuff he's done never made me uncomfortable. Quite the opposite, actually. He's cute, definitely what I would have said is my type, but like a guy version, and it feels different than any friendship I've ever had. Like again, looking back, I definitely haven't been acting super platonic with him, and we've gotten close really fast. And if I'm being honest, if he'd been a girl, I also would have assumed that's where this was going. I guess my issue is, should I tell him next time I see him that I didn't realize we were dating? Should I wait? Does he need to know? I don't want him to feel embarrassed that he assumed or think that I'm using him to figure myself out, but I also don't want to lie. I genuinely want to see where this goes since he makes me really happy. To summarize, I moved to a new town after a bad breakup with a girl, met this guy, thought we were just instantly good friends. I didn't realize he was actually asking me out, then realized it when he held my hand when we went for lunch. I thought about it, and I really like him a lot. Should I tell him I didn't realize we were dating, and that he's the first guy I've ever dated, or should I wait a bit? Not tell him at all. Here's what happened afterwards. So we had our dinner/movie night yesterday, and I was very nervous. Mostly because I was scared that how new it was to me was going to be a deal breaker. But Eric came over, and I think he instantly realized I was acting weird. He didn't say anything while he was helping me cook, but then when we sat down to eat, he almost immediately asked what was up. So I basically said something like, I really like you, and I want to see where this goes, but I want you to know it's very new to me, and I'm not sure you're cool with that. And he asked what exactly was new to me, and I said I'd only dated girls before. Which then led to a conversation where I couldn't avoid telling him that I didn't realize we were dating until that lunch. He actually got really quiet for a few seconds after that, and I was scared he was upset, but then he just laughed. Basically, he thought I'd been flirting with him for quite some time. Looking back, I probably was, just not intentionally. And all of his friends had been saying like, he seems so into you, it's really obvious, he's probably just too shy to make the first move. He even mentioned some other stuff we or I had done that I gotta admit definitely doesn't sound platonic when he retells it. So I can see why they thought that, and ultimately they were right, I guess. And during that lunch he'd apparently thought I was reaching to grab his hand, so he reached out too. Otherwise he probably wouldn't have done it, because he said he's never been good at making the first move physically. He said when he asked me to dinner, that was a huge deal, and his friends had tried to hype him up for a while, and that's probably why I didn't realize that he was asking me out since he was super nervous. Anyway, we ended up talking a lot after dinner. He didn't come out publicly, aside from a few close friends, until a year or so ago either, so he definitely understood that I don't have a lot of experience. He hasn't had a lot of relationships in general, at least not any proper and public ones, since he hadn't come out, and it's a pretty conservative area, so there aren't a lot of guys who are out of the closet here. He actually admitted that he'd even been nervous to talk to me that first time we met since I looked kind of lumberjack. Why? His words, not mine. Though the day we met I think I hadn't shaved in a while, so I don't doubt it. And he also knows rumors travel fast here, especially when someone doesn't really fit in. So I guess he was worried that I'd fit the small-town conservative type or have heard all the gossip. The whole, it's a date thing for example would never happen between two guys who are just friends here. I've definitely noticed the culture, and it's something we talked about too since being out here isn't always easy. So we might try to keep it low-key at first and mostly tell his friends and some of mine. I could probably ramble on about him and what we talked about for a long time, but to keep it short it was a really nice talk and we want to take it slow, but we also realize we've basically been half dating since May, so it felt weird not to make it official. So I decided to punish myself this evening and reinstall Tinder for the 80th time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result, and tonight I have perpetuated this notion. Maybe I subconsciously enjoy the pain. This isn't a rant about not achieving a desired result on Tinder. I have no real end goal. I'm not thirsty. I really couldn't give a fuck about the outcome of my Tinder endeavors. This is a rant about some of the shit people say in their bios. I have questions. Here are some of the bios I've come across. Mentally ill with daddy issues and a drinking problem. Dating me is like taking too much acid. Mentally unstable and obsessed with red flags. Who is this for? Who reads this and thinks, that's her. That's someone I want to penetrate. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Have mental health problems, hell, have 2 or 3. Lord knows I'm no spring chicken. Have baggage, have trauma from past experiences, nothing inherently wrong with any of this. I just cannot fathom why you would advertise this shit as some kind of enticing personality quirk. Imagine a man saying this, wouldn't you run for the hills? Imagine the people that they match with. What kind of man reads a bio like that and thinks this could work to my advantage? Seek help. You are fishing for sharks with your bare hands, and your friends will have to deal with the inevitable bullshit that comes out of this. Do you want someone to save you? Because I think the probability is you have a 3-month relationship that starts off extremely passionate. You say I love you after you spend 14 straight days together after your first date, and it's full of wild, low-key terrifying sex and impulsive behavior, and it ends horrifically when you realize you're both total fucked up emotional vampires, and then what? It's a tale as old as time. You don't need Tinder, you need therapy. Dating you is like taking too much acid? You need a warehouse full of able bodies to unpack a statement like that. I would rather die alone. Then you've got. I can leg press you. I can probably scull a beer faster than you. I'm funnier than you. I'd beat you in tennis. Is there a market for this? Are there men out there who are turned on by the thought of being leg pressed by their girlfriend? Is everything going to be a competition? It gives off intense, I'm always right vibes. If you know, you wish you didn't know. Are there men out there who read a bio like, I'm better than you at stuff, and think that's so hot, talk down to me more, insult me mummy, disrespect my intelligence belittle me? What do you get out of that? And then you've got variations of, I won't message first, you need to be X and Y and own X item, and have X haircut etc., etc., etc. Which essentially says, I'm hard work, I am an asset that you need to work for, you will constantly be falling over yourself to impress me. Well, I'm sold. That sounds like a valuable way to spend a couple of years of my early 20s. I need to be constantly reminded of your constantly appreciating value. You could have anyone you want, but you chose me, and I should be grateful. Visit a slum or something. Kendrick was onto something when he said, be humble. I find it disheartening that this kind of arrogance and these unwavering, unrealistic standards are applauded as self-love. They just know what they want, right? Sure. Let's give people exactly what they want all the time. That'll end well for society. You deserve this. Less confusing, but more excruciatingly boring, are the classic. Avocado is overrated, haha. Coffee red heart. My controversial opinion is, insert possibly the least interesting thought anyone has ever had in the history of consciousness. Like, I'm not as emotional about this one. It's just so unoriginal, so uncreative, and it's so out of place when it's slapped underneath a pair of bare-ass cheeks. You're going for wholesome when I can just about see your literal, actual asshole. You are telling me that you enjoy eating food and drinking coffee. Do you also enjoy breathing? Sleeping in bed is great too. Walking is something you do for sure sometimes, maybe even watching TV when you're feeling wild. Also, I absolutely love that you can just take a picture of the place you shit out of, and it just works. You don't get lost in someone's eyes anymore. You get lost in their ass cheeks, the depth of the crack, the poetry of underwear. Elegant, classy, mysterious. Tinder Bums, the movie. Finally, you've got the way away too muchers. Don't be boring. Let's talk about intelligent things. Biochemistry, Jordan Peterson, chemicals, neuroscience. It went on like that for what felt like a lifetime. This was an actual bio I read. The depths of the darkness can only be illuminated by two hearts coming together to create a light. This also went on for half a screen. Honestly, these kinds of people are probably actually interesting and have something to offer to the right person. I just think you're trying too hard to communicate who you are, to convey depth. Why? Who is this for? Okay, we get it. You are profound and your blog is worth a read. Do I want to meet up with you and have my taste in wine critiqued while we unironically talk about chemicals? That sounds really hot. Let me get back to you on that one. There are so many funny bios out there, don't get me wrong, so many awesome chats to be had. It's definitely a roller coaster. The best bios I see are ones where you can tell that they genuinely don't really give a fuck instead of just pretending they don't give a fuck to cover up the fact that they give more of a fuck than they'll ever be able to admit to themselves. It's really not subtle. I swiped through Tinder and just, oh, honey, love yourself. Online dating is not for me. I think that as a general rule, myself included, the name of the game is to put a strong foot forward, to amplify traits in your personality that you think are attractive or interesting. But in the long run, this is never sustainable. You try to communicate yourself as something that you can only really be on your best days. What about when the honeymoon phase is over and you're comfortable with just chilling and being your normal self? What happens when it becomes clear that you're both only 20% of what you made yourself out to be on your Tinder profile? Is that not a giant waste of time and an overall shitty experience? People are layered and nuanced, and condensing them down into 6 photos and a sentence, it just isn't real. Goodbye forever, Tinder. See you next week.